cochineal cut on her lip was a sanguine sunset, carnadine and carnal, and the brassy bruise on her brow broke like the moon through the jaundiced city sky. Her head hummed with a hollow drum roll and rang with the reverberation of the devil's tattoo. Turning onto her side, she could just make out the fissure between door and frame, seeping lava light across the landing. She moved her mouth to call out for help. Her lip split again, weeping a claret tear. A wretched rasp issued forth from her parched throat, a sound only the dead could hear. A hand regained its sensation, and a finger clicked as she clenched her fist. White-knuckled, she hauled herself onto her elbows as rusty nails created crimson crescents in the pallor of her palm. She pitched up and down as she heaved her vessel over the undulating steps, legs trawling in her wake. Reaching the crest of the stairs, she came to a rest against the wall to await her second wind. Sighing a seashell she caught her breath and tried to trace the journey which had brought her to this position. All alone, in the near dark, she felt like crying. She was awash with unfathomable emotions. From the murky depths, her memory's wreckage began to surface, piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. A candle in a bottle, a shattered glass, lost words. Like a tidal wave, light burst through the door, swelling round her in foamy effervescence. With it came her past. He was wearing a long, coal-coloured coat. His face was ashen and his eyes were embers. He stood in the ochre glow, surveying the sad scene before him. "I thought you'd gone," he murmured in a shade's voice, through teeth held tight like a garrote. I did, she croaked in a shingle voice. Into the back of her hand she warmed the wound to her wry mouth. "Why are you still here? I heard the door. Well, I thought I had," he muttered, almost inaudibly, his gentle words lapping against her like low tide. The stretched shape of his shadow moved to touch her, and she felt relief. "There are things that need to be said. There are things best forgotten," he remarked, out of nowhere, his jawbone just quivering like a buoy in still waters. I know. A crackle-glazed voice echoed inside her china-white ears, and the hue from her porcelain cheeks disappeared as she sank into unconsciousness once more. The wall became clay, moulding to her back's bows and bends, and darkness swept over her. Adjusting to the obscurity, her insecurity returned. She could still feel the peal of Hal's bells accompanying the cacophonic pain from the crack in her kiss-curl mouth. Finding her bearings, she realized she was in bed, swathed in her soft sea-green sheets. Barely able to move a muscle, barnacle fast under the blankets, her eyes focused on the figure looming over her, emerging like a face in a black pool. He recited the following words without a prompt. "There is nothing we have done which cannot be undone. As long as there is pain, the after-effects will never wane. Regret comes only from that which we lose, not that which we gain." She knew that what he said somehow made sense, but she didn't understand it. What had they done? What had they gained? With a quizzical emerald eye, she implored him to explain. The after-image of his silver lunar face had scorched through her cornea, leaving a print behind her lens, and she drew her eye's hood over it to save it from more glare. "Why does it hurt so much?" she expired. There was no response from the ebon room, only the resound of her respiration. With resolve, she resisted the bed's restraints and swung her leaden feet to the floor. She sat for a moment, slightly slumped, a half-filled sack of sand. Head to one side, she once again opened her diamante eyes, encrusted with sleep's jewels. With an onyx thumbnail she removed the gold dust from its setting of her precious pearly eyes. Slowly she regained her strength and came to standing. Swaying in the current of draught through ill-fitting windows, she staggered to the doorway. A head rush nearly sent her off course, but she reached her destination and held onto the handle for support. "Where are you going?" She whirled round in a vortex to face the sound. "I need to get out of here. It's not doing me any good. Whenever I try to go, you stop me. You're like an albatross around my neck, an anchor holding me against my will. I want to leave this behind. I can't stay here much longer. I feel like I'm drowning." A tremulous torrent of words was spat into space. "It's not getting any better. I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I wish you were here." Her voice trailed off, overwhelmed by the crashing desire to scream and the flood of tears rolling down her glassy skin. "But I am here," he avered into her aureate oracle, in a tone as warm as rum. "I am here, and I always will be." I know that, and I'm glad you're here sometimes, but it's not good for me. I'm just going round in circles," she spluttered as her head spun. She made for the desk and felt around for the candle. Her right hand brushed against its waxy ridges, like frozen rain on a mast. Her left hand found the smooth pebble-like lighter, and with a deft motion she thumbed the flint, which fizzed and struck up a sparkling repartee with the gas. Bringing the wick to the party, she lit the candle, which carried on the conversation in cobalt and topaz. In its scintillation she could see most of her room. It was a mess. It reminded her of the night of all nights. In the candle glimmer, the glasses on the dinner table glittered, and the cutlery gleamed. She stood, waiting. She sat. She stood again, pacing. The smell of the food she had prepared rose into her nostrils like the fumes off tar, burnt and bitter. She gulped a mouthful of wine, but it clung to her palate, and its insipid, limpid tang made her wish she hadn't imbibed. A deep blue sheen engulfed the room, and she heard the doorbell, short and sharp. And again, more insistent. Still gripping the glass, she passed from the dining room to the front door. She didn't see the policeman. She didn't hear his voice. She didn't take in what he said. She dropped the drink, splashing bloody spots over the parquet, imbruing it with the cloying ruby liquid. And she fell too, after the glass, descending into abysmal amethyst darkness. Smoking tallow wax showered onto her sallow, algid hand, bringing her awareness back. She found the courage to say, "I'm sorry, but I'm leaving." "Why?" His voice, as violent as a storm, vibrated through her. He held her arm, and she wrenched it from him with too much force. He stood like a tall ship, his broad shoulders, its sails filled with a squall. He watched her glide through the door. She was gone. She could barely see for the salty room pouring through her puffy eyes. Filled with only one thought, she blindly flitted to the flight of stairs that would get her outside. Outside, where she could forget. Forget. Regret. Regret comes only from that which we lose, not that which we gain. The Words hooked themselves into her, and like a fish, she flopped off the top step. Her spine scalloped as she piked through the air. Pellucid flashes of her life shoaled before her as a shoulder landed hard, and her neck arched as her forehead was battered by the skirting board. The last thing she was aware of was the piercing pain as her tooth punctured her lip.